So today we're joined by our very own Cian, Conor and Melanie. So they're going to talk to us today about their sporting careers, how they stayed resilient when they were faced with setbacks, and how they work successfully in a team. I'm going to kick off with Cian O'Sullivan, who is our Director in Tax. So Cian, over to you.
Yeah, so career at BDO, I've been here since June 21. Yeah, that's correct. Time's flying. And I trained previously in PwC. I was there for 7 years. I was in a boutique private client tax practice for a couple of years before coming on board with Cian and the team here in BDO. Private clients tax team, probably all know what it is, what we do. We look after owner-managed individuals, professionals, which should cover some solicitors and doctors, and then family wealth, intergenerational wealth. And we help them with their tax planning and tax compliance obligations. So within that as well, we have a bit of a niche around sports and entertainers, which can be quite interesting. I think at last count, we had over 90 clients in that space. Kieran Medler's partner in our team set that up probably 20 years ago, and I think it's kind of safe to say we're the leading practice in that field at the moment. So we look after a lot of Irish rugby players that have been playing in the World Cup there recently, Irish Premier League soccer players, golfers, a number of Olympians, and then a couple of actors and musicians. So again, it's the same private clients tax work that we do, but we tend to have a kind of broader scope of services with them because these guys are earning their wealth earlier on in their careers, and they need a little bit more help and assistance with their affairs and planning. So that's very interesting. My sporting background, I've played GAA all my life up until 2 years ago when I retired. Played with my club, Kilmacud Crokes, and then with Dublin for 13 years or so, and in a very, very successful period. So I was very lucky to be part and playing when I was at that time. So it was a really enjoyable number of years. Probably didn't enjoy it as much as I should have at the time, but looking back on it now, they were really special days. So sport has always been a massive part of my life. So working in BDO with our sports advisory unit, nice to be able to marry the two up. So that's a bit of background on me. Conor.
Thank you. So Conor, as everyone knows, but I'm on Audit Team 4. So I joined in November 2019, so nearly 4 years now. It's kind of mad. But we have a bit of a broad range of clients, a lot of construction and a lot of production clients. So the work isn't nearly as interesting as what Cian does. But I think I started playing rugby when I was 4. I think my dad brought me up to St Mary's, and then I went to Gonzaga. Continued there and kind of made a few teams along the way, and ended up in Connacht, and I had 5 years as a pro until I had a shoulder injury playing in Europe against Bordeaux, and found myself in BDO like every young professional sports person wants to do. And that's it me, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, no, you're great. So hi, I'm Melanie O'Connor, relatively new here in BDO, relatively new to professional services, not relatively new to marketing. Been here since the start of the year. I suppose my background in swimming, I'm taking us back a couple of decades. So for me, back in the day, back in Australia, I used to be an elite swimmer. So I actually represented Australia at 3 World Swimming Championships. I won 2 silver and a bronze. I brought one of my silver medals here with me. I don't know where the other 2 are. They're somewhere around all the different moves, but this is a pretty cool one. So this one was from Barcelona 2003, and whole story behind it as well, but this one was kind of the coolest one around there. So this one actually is part of the 4x200 freestyle relay team for Australia. Somehow at the Australian trials that year, I did a massive personal best time and ended up on the 4x200 freestyle relay team somehow. I'm actually a sprint butterflyer. So based on that, so I was in the team, and they decided to put me in as the final leg of the relay. So I've never done this event internationally before. don't really understand, because 200 metres is like running an 800 metre. It's kind of in the middle of between sprint and endurance. You kind of got to pace it quite quickly. And the two girls that went in first were 3 seconds off the pace. So this is the heat for the 4x200 relay at Worlds, and Australia is 6th, and we need to be in the top 4 to actually get into the final. So the third girl jumps in and manages to take over a place, but they're still actually running 5th, and for us to make the final, I have to actually pass someone. So for me, I'm freaking out, don't really know how to do the event, haven't done it before internationally, and then I've got this weight of, if I don't pull something out of the hat here, Australia's going to miss the final for the relay. So in my naivete, I dived in and took over the Canadian girl who was next to me in the first 50, did a time in the first 50 that you're probably supposed to do in a 100, not a 200, and the whole Australian team's like cheering, going, yeah. And one of the guys that was on the team was a bit more of a middle distance, and he knew that I was in trouble. So by the time it was fine, stayed in front of the Canadian girl for the first 100, turned for the third 50, and the lactic acid kicks in. And I just remember thinking, no matter what this does to me, this girl cannot pass me, no matter what. So the most pain I've been in ever in my life in that second 100 metres of the relay. Never done it before, and somehow managed to stay in front of the Canadian girl. We made the final and we won a silver medal. So that was a cool story. So it's nice. So I think what's interesting is people assume swimming is an individual sport, but it's not. And I think it's important to, to say that it's what you do as a part of a team that really, makes a difference. And this was the first time I ever did a top 10 world ranking time. So I don't have much images, much videos back then, because this is pre-smartphones, this is pre-Facebook. So this is one of very few pieces of footage I do have. So quick little show of that, and then we'll move along.
Melanie Horton, Heidi Crawford, Lara Davenport, Rachel Coffey.
Jenny Thompson world record 56.56. I don't think it's going to get bothered.
Petria Thomas is the Australian and Commonwealth record holder, 57.73.
Take your marks.
Women's 100 metres butterfly is underway. Nearest our camera when they surface will be Rachel Coffey, then Lara Davenport 7, Heidi Crawford, Melanie Horton in lane number 5, Rachel Commissar in lane number 4, Diane Widoué in 3, Felicity Galvez in 2, Nicole Hunter across in lane number 1. Commissar's going hard here in lane number 4. She leads Horton at the moment, and joining in as well Heidi Crawford. Nice Diane Widoué, who was fastest in the heats in the first split. She's going well, but it is going to be Commissar's who leads Widoué and Horton around.
Well, as I said, Rachel Commissar's had the fastest second 50 out of anybody in the heats, and she's put herself in a wonderful position. Diane Widoué, good in first 50, starting to fade badly now, the French champion over in lane number 3. Look out, here comes Commissar's.
Commissar's stroking very well indeed. Less than 10 metres to swim now. She's holding Widoué, and Melanie Horton can only do third at the moment. But look at Rachel Commissar's come through, and Commissar's, who won the 50 fly last night, claims the 100 metres butterfly as well, in advance of Horton and Widoué.
Well, it was a great performance considering, as we've been saying for the last 5 minutes, she's just won the 400. So it's a great effort by the American there. Really took control. You can see her with the underwater shot in the first turn, having a big look underwater at the French champion next to her in lane number 3, Diane Widoué. But then from there on in, it was just all one-way traffic from the halfway mark. There's Diane there on the right-hand side of the screen, and there's Melanie Horton in lane number 5. You can see what a big lead the American has going around. Nice streamlined position. There's another big look underwater, so she was very concerned by the people around her, so she must have been feeling that 400, but she's all by herself. Look at that. That was a great performance. Great time, 57.45. It's only the Australian record, but of course she can't set that because she's not Australian. But it was a great effort there by Rachel Commissars, and I think she'll be very, very satisfied with that.
And Melanie Horton will become the second fastest Australian of all time. She's now inside of Susie O'Neill's time, but Petria Thomas's Australian and Commonwealth record still stands. Melanie Horton now the fastest, second fastest all time.
Good on you, Melanie. That's a great effort.
The women's 100 metres butterfly, 57.45. Melanie Horton, 59.16, and Diane Widouay finishes third in advance of Lara Davenport. So already one world record.
So that's how you take over someone in the last stroke of a race. So yeah, that was first time I cracked the top 10 in the world as a swimmer, and actually something that probably the only person that will understand is probably Joe. Actually went ahead of Susie O'Neill as the second fastest Australian of all time. But yeah, 20 years ago, so thank you for joining me in a trip down memory lane.
That is great, thank you so much. So we're going to ask the panellists now a few questions. So Etain, if you want to ask.
So Cian and Conor, this is kind of more for you. So as you both played within team sports, what for you were the key characteristics of a successful team?
There's loads. I think the real secret was, or success of it was distilling it down into the key components, and everyone understanding that, and there being one overarching kind of common purpose that everyone was working towards, and there being real clarity about what that was and what the group and the team were trying to achieve. Like I remember, and that's something that we kind of cracked, I guess, during our successful period. But I remember in earlier years having sessions and workshop sessions where we'd gone around the flip charts and putting loads of things up on pages, and everyone thinking, "Wow, this is great, look at all this great stuff that we have." But then if you were to ask someone, a couple of days or weeks later to recall some of that stuff, they wouldn't be able to. So the real secret behind, and we would have spent a lot of time and invested a lot of effort in figuring out what that purpose was, figuring out what those values were that were sitting behind it. And it wasn't just a top-down exercise, it was everyone, it was the whole team. Obviously you need a group to kind of drive it, so there was that, but you're bringing it back to the wider group, and everyone's thrashing that out before there's proper consensus and buy-in on it. But I think that was probably one of the key hallmarks to our success, that was very, very clearly understood, communicated, and anyone, whether it was our gear bag guy or our groundskeeping guy or statistician or captain, would be able to recall that and call that off to you and understand what that was. So having that common purpose that everyone was very aligned with.
Obviously similar enough, but I think for me, like when we won a Pro 12, I think in 2016 with Connacht, and I think a big thing was, I know Pat Lam was the coach at the time, and he said that you could be yourself, and I think it was a big thing. You'd look across the group and there was lads from New Zealand, Australia, England, and a very, it wasn't a kind of a blanket exercise over everyone and made to fit into what he wanted to do. Yeah, you had kind of a game plan and how you wanted to play and what Cian spoke about values and where the team was going, but I think he allowed people kind of be themselves on and off the pitch. So if something was on, you could try it, and if someone was into something outside the pitch, you were allowed to try it. I know one of the guys was a big baker, and he used to bring in treats on a Wednesday, which was pretty nice. But it was it's little things like that kind of take the pressure off sometimes, and people could just completely relax. And I thought that was pretty vital, because you're obviously in some pretty pressure environments along the way. So I think it can't all be kind of up at that level. You need some bit of a release, so that was a big one for me.
Great. Melanie, over to you. I know you were saying that swimming isn't really an individual sport, so that kind of conflicts the question I'm going to ask you now. But there must be times when it gets quite challenging, the dark winter mornings and nights, coming home exhausted from work. How do you get up and motivate yourself to deliver the results time and time again? Did you find it a bit more challenging, being in an individual sport, not in that kind of team atmosphere per se?
Yeah, it's interesting because it is actually a team atmosphere. I know that doesn't help you with your question, but you can, I think, as a team, you can achieve more together than you can it doesn't matter if you've got one great player on a team. It's how you all work together. And the same is true, of swimming. Every morning you'd wake up, but you get up at 4:30 in the morning, but it made it a little bit easier that you're going to hang out with your friends. So that's kind of does help. I think it would be a lot harder if you didn't have that environment. I think it does make that sort of sense of camaraderie that you're all in it together does really make a difference, and it does help. And I know personally I always went above and beyond as a part of a team. I did things in relays and team things that I couldn't do by myself. There was, I think, one where I went faster than people that I couldn't normally go faster than, because you knew why you were doing it, and it was that part of that team. So I think it links a little bit back to the points that the lads have made in terms of knowing why you're in it and what you do it. And I think, true, whether you're doing it as yourself or individual, if you know why you're doing it, that makes it so much easier to get through the late nights, the early mornings, the tough 2-a-day, 3-a-day trainings.
Absolutely. Well, look, this is probably a question to all of you, but Cian, I might jump to you. You've obviously all juggled very busy lifestyles, with competing demands such as sports, study, work, family. How did you balance it all, and did you find it challenging?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging at times, but probably not as challenging as people might have thought or expect. And I definitely can't take credit for being able to do it all like you have. And it's a really big challenge for GAA players, because we're not full-time professionals, we're amateurs, so every other player in the team is either working like you or studying. We have other big commitments in our lives, and our management team was very aware of that, and we used to refer to it as the kind of 3 glass balls that you're trying to juggle the whole time. You have your study or your professional life, you have your sport, and you've got your family and your social. And all of those are equally important, and they all have to be kept spinning in the air. You can't drop any one of them, because the individual at the end of the day is the most important thing. If you don't have a good, well-rounded individual coming to training or showing up at matches every week, that's going to impact on their performance. So we had a really strong support network from our management. They all understood that. So even times when I had exams, I'd be told, off you go, don't want to see you for 2 weeks. Like, that wasn't my decision. It was taken out of my hands completely, because a player who's got a big game coming up is not going to willingly approach the manager and say, do you know what, I need 2 weeks off. They tell you, see you in 2 weeks, come back in 2 weeks' time, and we'll pick things back up from where they left off then. Equally, you need that support and understanding from the other aspects, so from the family and social side of things, although that probably is the one that takes the biggest hit when you're in the thick of it, and then also from your professional life. So, in my training contract, I kind of deliberately went down a route of an industry where it wasn't M&A stuff that I was doing, because that would just be too time heavy and too much of a time commitment, and deadlines just wouldn't go with me trying to get out to training in evenings. So you can control that a little bit yourself, but then you need an understanding employer as well who supports that and gets that whole dynamic of the stuff that's going on outside your life, and that work-life balance that everyone's looking for. So I think they all complement each other as well, because again, just like sport, in a workplace, if you have a happy, healthy person showing up to work every day, they're going to put in a better shift and a greater day's work for you than someone who's carrying stress and negativity from stuff going on outside their lives. So at times it comes to a head. Like, I remember I was doing my final accounting exams, and we played a game. It was an All-Ireland semi-final on the Sunday, and it was like the most intense game I've ever played in, and to that point I never did after that. It was 2013, we played against Kerry, and it was just an electric game. And the next day I had my final accounting exams, so all the players were going out that evening to celebrate. We came out on the right side of the victory. I was going home to stick my head into some FAE folders, which was grim. It was really grim, but that was some come down from like being up there to walking into the RDS on the Monday to do a 4-hour exam or whatever it is. But yeah, there's the odd time it comes to a head like that, but that's the exception rather than the norm. So it's definitely not as challenging as it might appear, and a lot of credit has to go to the the other stakeholders who are involved in facilitating that balance for you, you know.
Absolutely. Conor, we might go to you next.
Yeah, similar. Like, I think people look at you and probably think you're a bit mad at times because you're running from training to college or work or whatever it is, but I think you get very used to it very young. Like, I think I started playing sport, as I said, really young at 4, so then I went into Gonzaga and we'd be training, I think from second year you had stuff on in the morning, so I think for me it's nearly weirder not to have training, if you get me. It's the nights you have nothing, you probably end up doing nothing, whereas when you have something on, you're pretty organised. So, and then a big one, like, I think you have to be open with the people you're working with, or your family and people around it. Like, I think I actually sat my leaving cert maths exam at 3 in the morning down in Auckland in New Zealand, because we were playing the middle of an under-20s World Cup. So, yeah, it was pretty weird. But I think when you're open, it was doable. I think the papers got like flown down or something, and the team manager was kind of had to sign stuff to say he'd be an invigilator. So we had actually beaten Wales the same night to get into the top like semi-finals or something. So while the lads were going home on the bus, I actually had to get a taxi back with the invigilator to the hotel to sit past maths. So yeah, thankfully I passed. But I think it's just you have to be open with everyone, and like you see the good in people as well. Like in here, people want you to be playing well, succeed and doing other stuff because it benefits everyone. So I think that's a big one, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Melanie?
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of the statements of the guys, and it really comes down to that environment that you put yourself in. I think 20 years ago, I didn't know companies like BDO existed, where it was possible, where you could have a workplace that was flexible enough to, you know, produce for the company, but also taking into consideration who you are as a whole person. So I might have been a little naive in not knowing that was existed, but this is 20 years ago in Australia. It didn't seem to be something that was possible, and now very much it's almost the norm, well, in good companies anyway, like BDO. But, you know, I think it comes down to that real environment that you put yourself in and the people that you surround yourself with, and because it makes such a difference when you've got good people around you that, you know, like I suppose what you said, Cian, with some of the people, you can never take all the credit for even the stuff that you achieve, because you couldn't have done any of it without the people that are around you. So I think that's what I'd say.
Cian, over to you again. Obviously, in the nature of sport, you win some and you lose some. How do you pick yourself back up from those setbacks, whether it's injuries, you know, losing competitions?
Like anyone who plays sport, even if you've been fortunate enough to be on successful teams and win a couple of things, you know, you're going to have your fair share of setbacks and adversities. That's a guarantee. My biggest challenge was probably around injuries, and had a couple of untimely ones. But you kind of look back on those occasions and you know, through that adversity, you know, you learn a lot about yourself. I used to liken it to almost like a bit of a grieving process. You have to go through the steps. You know, you're going to be frustrated, angry initially, but you finally get to a point where you're just accepting it. And when you accept it, you're kind of asking yourself the question, well, you know, do or die now. What are you going to do about this? And I think there's good self-reflection in that, and there's really, really high reward when you manage to come through the other side of it, and you make a success of it. And yeah, I found, you know, through my career, some of the most rewarding days I had were coming back from setbacks. It wasn't, you know, the big day winning an All-Ireland or an award or something like that. It was getting back on the pitch when you weren't supposed to be there, or, you know, getting your place back when you've been dropped or whatever it was. So they are challenges, but I think you need to flip it on its head and kind of ask yourself, well, you know, what's the opportunity here? What can I do about this? I can lie down and just kind of accept it, or I can try and do something about it. So I think sport is a great tool to teach you those skills and bring out that bit of an inward-looking exercise. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, we might move on to yourself, Conor. What is it about sport that shaped you into the person that you are today?
Jeez. Deep enough for... No, I think similar to Cian, I think as well, when you've been in professional, like you're used to either being picked or dropped every week, and like that's as cutthroat as it gets, I suppose. And when you're used to that from 17 or 18, I think when you're very young, you struggle with it, and like that, like if you're dropped, everyone's the worst in the world, and it can be very consuming in a way. Whereas I think I was in my second year of the academy, I think, and I was actually going to be like cut completely because I was too small, and then I changed position and was kept and went on. But I think it kind of gave me a bit of a kind of an outlook that this isn't the be all and end all. It gives you a bit more of a natural or healthy looking outlook on it, because I think it is easy to be kind of all consumed, and probably when it's your job a little more so. But yeah, I think just like week in, week out, either being picked or not, it's at the start it's a steep learning curve, because you're, as I said, like it's your whole life and it's everything, and then you kind of learn that there's far more important things than kicking a ball around for 80 minutes. But yeah, so kind of just as you go, you probably develop and get used to it. Yeah.
Great. Melanie, what about yourself? Is there anything that you've kind of taken from sport into your professional career that's allowed you to grow?
What haven't I taken? It's probably more the question. And you know, there's so much that you learn, and it isn't even, you know, you learn more from your losses than your wins. You learn more from the things that you stuff up than the things you do well. Yeah, they always kind of like pat on the backs. They're kind of when you do something well or something works, then you go, oh, okay, it's kind of a steering device. But you take a lot more from the things that you don't do right, from the things that you learn. And I think that there's a lot of things, prioritization. I mean, my goodness, trying to navigate study and work and life and elite sport. Like, there's a prioritization that you have to learn. You can't get through that without learning that. And the other one is that effort is rewarded. And like someone used to say to me with butterfly, you're like, oh, you're just no, I was not natural at it. I remember I got 8 years before that, I got disqualified because I couldn't do the stroke properly. It's not like, you know, it's natural. And I think that's important to highlight, is we all have things in life that we can improve to whatever level. It doesn't matter. More so, it's that benchmark that you have against yourself. And I think that's a healthy thing to even bring into career as well. It's easy to look at where someone else is in their career and go, I want to go there, and that's great, or they have something that I don't, but actually where do you want to go? And how can you take your skills and abilities and what you have and move forward in yourself? And having yourself as a benchmark rather than someone else, I think can be a healthy thing to have for us, so that you don't have to worry about competition with others. And all, you know, I know it looks like it's a competition, but the best races I ever did was when, like, I did that girl in the race there, I didn't know she was a stroke in front of me. You're just doing your own race. And when you put things together in the right way, something my coach used to teach us was that focus on the process, let the result take care of itself. And when you put things together well in whatever you do, usually the result takes care of itself.
Cian, back over to you. What for you is a winning mindset? You know, how do you build it and commit to it?
So just kind of thinking about Melanie's answer there, and a lot of it resonating and echoing, and probably feeds into that question a little bit. There's probably a lot that goes into that, the winning mindset. I think it's clarity on what exactly it is, the purpose is. You know, what are you trying to achieve? And then, you know, willingness to continuously grow and improve. You know, that was a big part of our success. And one of our kind of key values is that we constantly wanted to get better. You know, there's no room for complacency, and you wouldn't even use that word at all. It was, where's the next bit of growth? Where's the next bit of learning? How do we stay ahead of the curve? So that all kind of feeds into the process. And I know that word is bandied around a lot, and it's kind of lost its meaning somewhat. But we kind of refer to it as preparation. And a thing that we said a lot was, you know, preparation is 9/10 of performance law, which there's great sense of comfort and clarity in what you need to do to perform. Everyone could prepare. It's within your control. It doesn't matter whether it's in a sporting or a professional context. If you're preparing for a client meeting, let's say, your performance will take care of itself in that meeting, in that presentation, if you've done the preparation. And the preparation is 90% of the work. So all you have to do then is just show up. And a lot of that was built into how we prepared for games and championships and competitions. It was all down to the preparation. So when the big day did show up and when the pressurized scenarios did show up, we'd been there before, we'd done our preparation, we'd kind of sit back and say, okay, look, let's just go on autopilot here, and all the work is done. And you'd no reason to be apprehensive or anxious going into performances. You didn't have that monkey on your back. You weren't looking over your shoulder at what the competition was doing. You weren't getting complacent about your previous wins and thinking, oh, well, I don't have to do the preparation that I did last year because, we're great and everyone's telling us we're great. So we obviously are great. No, you still have to do that preparation. You need to show up every single time. You still need to do 90% of the work to make sure that you show up, and the last 10 is just a given. So that was, to us, that was kind of the winning mindset, even though winning was never part of it. It was all about what's our purpose and trying to achieve that, and winning things wasn't really part of that purpose. It was something kind of higher than that. But having that approach and that mentality was, winning was just going to be a natural byproduct of that then.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So, yeah.
Conor, back over to you. You've obviously worked with great coaches and managers. Was there a hallmark of their leadership? And you might talk about some of the key characteristics that you think makes a great leader.
I think I'd say the guys will agree is honesty is a big one. I think everyone will ask for it and everyone will say they will be honest. But actually under the kind of bonnet of teams and coaches, it's rare you get someone that's like 100% honest with you, because they've obviously so many players to juggle or so many people to juggle. So I definitely think honesty is a big one. And someone who probably believes in you. I think for my last year I had a coach called Andy Friend down in Galway. He's moved on now, but he kind of like gave everyone had a superpower, which sounds a bit mad, but so like whatever that was, he'd make you work on that nearly more than you worked on your weakness, because he said, yeah, your weakness will come on, but if you have a superpower, that's what will make you stand out from the guy you're competing with. So I thought that was a pretty cool way of framing it. So definitely honesty, belief, and that was a big one, yeah.
You have to tell us what your superpower surely was.
I can fly, yeah. No, yeah, mine was kicking, so goal kicking, so yeah, that was my one.
Brilliant. Melanie, over to you.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me from a sporting perspective to answer on the leadership side of things. I can, without going into anything there, if anyone's seen any of the news, you'll know in Australia, you'll sort of see some of the stuff there. So in some ways we did that without strong leadership, but I suppose, or healthy leadership might be a better way to put it. But one of the things that did sort of teach me from an example of what not to do is what, when you learn from, you go, oh, here's an example of what not to do in that. I think I've taken a lot from that and looked for things, and sometimes opposite traits in leaders and things like that. I think, from elite sporting perspective, belief, 100%, willingness to be honest and tell you where, constructive feedback. I think I love it. It's like, I've gotten that love from this insatiable desire to improve. So that's kind of, whenever they're saying, oh, you're dropping your elbow here, you're doing that, it was kind of fuel for me, because you knew implementing that you get better. So being honest and being able to willing to give really good constructive feedback, I think that's really helpful. Honesty, transparency, and I think number one for me is integrity in leadership. Like, hands down, if you see someone who is the real deal, they are who they say they are, they do what they say they will, like, there's a lot of respect that I have for people, because you don't have to do that. and even the people who do the right thing even when no one's watching, like that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, look, my final and last question to you all, and Cian, we might start with you. Yeah. If you could go back and give yourself advice, what would you say and why?
Yeah, someone asked me this question recently enough, actually. I'd say probably enjoy it a little bit more when you're stuck in the moment. I get to look back on it now with really fond memories that I probably didn't. That's probably the same with everything, isn't it? Like you probably don't really fully appreciate and cherish those moments when you're in them. It's a high-pressured environment, and it can be stressful at times, certainly when you're dealing with challenges and adversities and stuff like that, but that shouldn't be the majority of the time. The majority of the time, it should be really enjoying, fulfilling, really, I guess. So probably to step back and smell the roses a little bit more while I was stuck in it, because you're just constantly thinking about what do I need to be doing now to make myself, put myself in the best position for the next training session, for the next match, whatever it was. And I guess that's just the nature of the beast. When you're playing high performance sport, you probably wouldn't be playing it if your mentality wasn't that way. But it would have been nice to probably reflect on it a little bit more while it was going on, and maybe enjoyed it a little bit more. I think it was something that I did do later in my career, but would have been nice to be able to do that a little bit earlier on too, I guess.
For me, I probably got very obsessed probably with where I wanted to go or what I wanted to achieve, and probably tripped up a little bit along the way. I know I mentioned earlier I got dropped halfway through my second year. I think that probably gave me a bit of a better perspective on having a bit of balance about everything. So I think if I was to look back, I'd probably say take a step back and probably focus more on the day-to-day as opposed to where you want to be down the line. Yeah.
Oh, I think I resonate a lot with both of what you lads have said. I think I was very young, 16, 17 years old, that gives away my age. Travelling the world with the Australian swimming team and being, in these big arenas with all these people, and you're standing next to some of your heroes, and you think, who am I, what am I doing here, kind of thing. So it's definitely I think I had the physical ability a long time before I got the mental and emotional maturity side of things to match that. And I think it's a lot of expectations that they put on teenagers, but it's still, you've got to rise to the occasion. So I would say to myself, just chill. Relax, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it, just do your thing and not worry about all that stuff, because it's so easy to get caught into you're standing next to your idol and all of that, but it really comes down to just focus on what you need to do, follow the steps that you need to follow, and you'll get where you want to go, and you just let go of all the noise.
That's great. Well, look, that's me all questioned out. I think we might take it to the floor if anyone has any questions.
So the question goes to you as well. So obviously when you're playing for your country, you have a lot of expectations, and it comes down to the fine line. There is that belief that what if I do something, what if I can't do something. So tomorrow say you have to win a match or you have to lose a match. It's a very fine line between them. Even if you take, especially Melanie, you would have seen yesterday that, I don't know if you follow the World Cup, but Maxwell pulled off a stunning yesterday in front of the whole crowd.
Was it the cricket?
Yeah. So that's the winner's mentality. You take that with you along in the game. So given that situation, when you have to deliver, it's either going to be a loss for your nation or a win for your nation. So what are you going to tell yourself at that point in time?
We just ignored all of that. We ignored the result and the kind of outside noise and what was going on around, and we were probably a little bit, I wouldn't say brainwashed, but we were a little bit, over the top about just blocking every single thing out. And I think Dublin being the capital and being the media hub as well, there was a lot of external stuff out there, so we just put our fingers in our ears and ignored all of that. Again, it comes back to what was it that we were trying to achieve. It wasn't to win X number of games or to win a certain or beat the team we were playing. It was certain targets that we had set ourselves that were kind of result irrelevant. You know, it didn't matter whether we won or lost the game. We were pretty confident that the result would follow if we met those targets that we were trying to achieve. But we would have been very happy if we played a game and we achieved those, and those targets were always so aspirational that I don't think we ever did achieve them. But you know, you kind of aim for the stars and land on the moon type of thing. And if we had played a really good performance and we lost, we'd still be kind of happy with that. You know, we'd be happy with where we're going and that we're on the right track. So we kind of took the result and the external pressure to the extent possible out of the equation, and that really helped with our focus and just focusing on our preparation and how we're going to show up and play, which I think was very important and a real bedrock to our success, because all of those distractions can eat away in at the team. They can feed or they can damage ego, and that was something we were pretty aware of, having, you know, been on the wrong side of that stuff at times. So we learned early on that we just need to shut all that stuff out and keep it within the four walls of the dressing room.
Yeah, no, literally the exact same. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I think you said it all. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things, if I can add. No, that's all right. Just on that, I think it's reiterating what the guys have said. I think even when I've always thought I'd regret more not trying than worried about failing. Like for me, I'd rather fail and try than not try. And I think that's a choice. Like, if you know, it's what do you value, what's important to you, and if you know what, I'd rather try and fail than not try. And then the other thing that you can stay away from with regret, if it's like, oh, we did this and we failed, or we were supposed to win, we didn't, whatever it was, is if you take out, as they said, all of the external factors, and you just focus on what's the best effort that I can put in, you cannot ever regret that. If you do literally the best that you can, there's no regrets in that. How can you regret that's the best we could do and we came up short on the day? How can you regret that? So if you focus on that, you're an internal effort, and you focus less on the external, the result, the stuff that's outside and what effort you bring, I think it kind of frees you from some of that stuff too. Cool.
So just actually a question for you, Cian. Please jump in, everyone else as well. No, you were just talking about it, Dublin, like about your why and the purpose was crystal clear from the kit man up to the top and so on. So just wondering, two questions actually. What was the why? And secondly, during the time you were there, was that ever changed or adjusted depending on where you were in the journey?
Yeah, so, but for this being recorded, I'll probably be happy enough sharing the why, but I'll keep that one to myself for now. But was it ever changed? It's funny enough, we actually tried to change or consider changing it when we had a new manager, and when we put a lot of work and effort into developing it in the first instance, it was to be something that lived long after the players in that group left the team. So it was to be that kind of legacy that a lot of it was probably piggybacked off, the All Blacks and their whole legacy, as they called it. And even at times we felt like we were probably taking too much from that. So we were saying, look, we need to change this a little bit and have our own stamp on it. But we wanted to be something that whoever you were and whatever generation it was a way that Dublin football carried themselves and played the game. And we had a change of manager, and they kind of went back to the drawing board and said, look, we need to constantly evolve and keep changing this. But the feedback was, no, this is something that's supposed to be independent and live by itself, separate to the team. So we reverted back to what it was, but we had a good, healthy discussion around it. And I'm not sure whether it's still there today. I hope it is, but I think it was really powerful and probably a bedrock of the team's success. That exercise that we did, and we didn't do it day one. It was probably 4 or 5 years into that journey that we were on, and we invested a lot of time and effort in it. But I think we certainly reaped the rewards of it in the latter years when we were trying to do something special with going back to back as many times as we did, because you really needed to redefine and redevelop the why, because the first All Ireland that we went for, that was pretty clear, like we wanted to win on All Ireland, easy. And then when you're trying to do back to back, it's kind of, well, we did that last year. That's not really getting people's juices flowing. Like, how do we reinvent our why and bring it on to another level where it's not just about winning All Irelands? It's something that no matter how many times you win, it's still there. It's still something you're chasing for. You never really reach it. Maybe we did, but I guess that's up to other people to decide. But yeah, hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Anyone else? A question for all of you. You spent so much of your youth playing the sport, but now, Cian, you mentioned you're retired. Conor, not professional and the same, but you, Melanie. So, what the evenings look like now on weekends, and do you ever feel like you've been incredibly lucky to be in those high performing situations with incredible managers for information? Do you ever feel like you have to get back to a club level? Is that what you, Melanie?
So what does it look like? If I'm in the water once a week, I'm having a good week. I would like to increase that back up again. I need to swim now to feel like myself, because it's been so much of a part of it. I don't know if you guys need to run or need to be on, or even just something because you spent so much, it's like in your DNA. In terms of giving back, for me, I'm terrible at teaching it. Like, I can swim, but I can't. I've tried. I'm terrible at trying to teach someone how to swim. So I'll leave that to people who are a lot better at it than me. But anyway, where I can, there's more just giving back from a place of, even my niece, she's now 3 and she loves swimming. And so I just want to make sure that she keeps the pressure off and does it because she enjoys it, not because her auntie was a good swimmer or anything like that. So I think where possible, if I can pass on the lessons I learned from it so others don't do the same mistakes. I think that more so than trying to teach kids how to swim. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah, I think I'm lucky that I was playing a bit of club rugby with Terranure, so that kind of fills the void. But I had knee reconstruction about 3 months ago, so I'm not doing much at the moment. But I'm coaching, which is it's pretty enjoyable. The under-20s. We haven't won a game yet, so I don't think I'm too good at it. So I think try and get the knee right and get back playing. But yeah, no, it is nice to, like, you kind of shock yourself. Maybe you kind of think, I won't be any use at this, or I didn't really learn much. But I think when you actually start talking to like younger people who maybe haven't been there, you kind of realise you probably did pick up 1 or 2 things along the way. So yeah, I think, as I said, it's weird kind of not being around the team and having a game to look forward to on a Saturday. So I suppose probably been a weird few months for me in that regard, but the coaching's filling the void. Yeah,
I've probably a good example of what not to do. When you finish, I went from training however many evenings a week and playing games to just cliff edge, nothing. And I thought it was going to be great. I was like, I'm going to have. The grass is always greener. When I was playing, I was always envious of people going away on holidays in the summer or missing a wedding or missing a stag or something like that. I was like, I'm going to have all this great time now to catch up on all of these things, and it's going to be brilliant. I'm going to really focus on that social family side of things. But within a couple of weeks and months, I realised I was going crazy, not exercising or playing or have a bit of a competitive outlet. So yeah, I was quick enough to get back doing a bit of exercise. Nothing really replaces the buzz and the environment that you were in, but I think it's important to get back and stay involved in some shape or form, and when kind of time allows it, I think getting involved with the club when my kids are a little bit older would be something that I'd be very eager to do, and give a bit back there, because I still look back on 2 of my managers, Pat Lamb and Jerry O'Brien, when I was under 8s when I started playing, all the way up to under 16, and the amount of effort and time they put into us, and still very good friends and family friends with them to this day. So I think it's really important, especially at that age, to give back to the club, and it's something in time, not now, but in time that I'll definitely try and do, yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. I hope you gained some valuable insights. And a huge thank you to our panelists who've been absolutely brilliant.